Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to online lecture 8. This will actually be a relatively short lecture for you. And there's only a couple of key concepts that I'm going to try to communicate in this lecture to you guys. So we left off last time talking about frequency distributions, and that left us getting into this notion of how spread out scores are. Right? Because we were considering distributions. We looked at symmetrical ones, we looked at non-symmetrical ones, we looked at heavy tail, light tail, all these sort of issues. And now we come to the big point of this, which is variability. And variability is how spread out the scores are in a distribution proper. Okay? So it's the amount of spread of the scores around the mean. Now, this is leading us into two very important concepts, very related concepts, the variance and the standard deviation. So stay tuned for that for the next lecture. But for this lecture, what I really want to communicate to you guys is that variability and central tendency are two different beasts. Just because you know one does not mean you know anything about the other. So for example, let's consider the housing prices. And this is a neighborhood with consistent type of housing, and down here we have a neighborhood with diverse type of housing. So let's call this midpoint here 250,000 just for fun, okay? So we'll call this midpoint that. Notice that these both, the neighborhood with the consistent type of housing and the neighborhood with the diverse type of housing, have the same mean, have the same average price of housing. However, in the neighborhood with the consistent type of housing, there's not nearly as much spread around the mean as there is in the neighborhood with the diverse type of housing. So even though the mean, even though the measure of central tendency is the same across both of these frequency distributions, the variability is quite different across both frequency distributions. And that's the big point. Okay. So to show you that just one more time, because I think it is a really important point, notice these both have the same mean. And we can see that by looking at the central point here. They have the same mean of 50. But the purple one only goes from 45 to 55, whereas the pink one goes from 40 to 60. Same means, different variability, different spread. Or alternatively, we could have different means with the same variability or spread. So in this case, now we have a distribution with a mean of 30 and another distribution with a mean of 50. Different means. However, notice how this goes from 20 to 40 and 40 to 60, and you probably notice they have very much the same shape, very much the same spread. In fact, if I picked up this pink one on the right and plopped it on top of the purple one on the left, they would line up perfectly. So different means, 30 versus 50, same variability, same amount of spread within them. Okay. So now I just want to briefly talk to you about the range. The range is one measure of variability. Now it's an imperfect measure, but that's okay. I mean, it still gives us some interesting information. So how do you get the range? You take the highest value in a set of scores minus the lowest value in a set of scores. That's it. What's the problem with the range? It only takes into account the highest and lowest values. It doesn't take into account anything else. So consider the following two sets of quiz scores for 9 students. Okay, let's consider them. We have quiz 1 with 1 1 and a bunch of 10s, 8 10s. And we have quiz 2 with 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So which set has the greater range? Let's see. Well, I take the highest 10 minus the lowest 1, that's 9. Take the highest 10 minus the lowest 2, that's 8. So this set has the greater range. Quiz 1 has the greater range. Now, would you also say that this set, Quiz 1, has the greater variation? See, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say that. And here's why. This is mostly 10s, and there's just one outlier of a 1. That's not a lot of variation, honestly. But down here, notice how spread out the scores are at every point, right? So I would say that quiz 2 probably had the greater variation. So clearly, range is not enough to get at variability, and that's when we're going to get into variance and standard deviation to better understand variability. Range is still important. I still encourage people to check range all the time when they're looking at their data sets, but it's not everything. Okay, so with that being said, please go ahead and look at quiz 3. It's on D2L under quizzes. Enter the password 9903 and please answer the 2 multiple choice questions there. That is your 3rd quiz, okay? So good luck with that. And that's all I have for you for today. Have a good one, everyone.